bit. And so there's something that's kind of hanging over this story. And it happens to the person who's reading it. You're thinking about it. So we can go to my first screen. And what is happening in this story is a question of whether it's all about whether we're talking about chicken or fish or turkey. Okay, chicken or fish or turkey. And I can explain why we're looking at chicken, fish, or turkey in this sense. Is that there's a story before this story that happens on the day that Christ is arrested and then during his trial. Because if you're reading about Peter talking to Jesus after the resurrection, we must remember where we left off with Peter. And we left off with Peter, well, denying that he knew Jesus at all. So that's why we wonder whether Jesus is planning to bring up the chicken thing. And you know, it is, remember folks, it is a wonderful time to know Bible stories and to tell Bible stories to people, because my friend Mike, okay, he caught me like the Sunday after Easter, and he said, you know, Mike was disturbed. He'd come to Christ, he'd come to faith in Christ. You know, his dad who raised him had never really told him any Bible stories, never taken him to church. He'd come to church and he found that it was an awesome place. It was a place where he could feel the Spirit at work. God had prepared in the church people to love him and to you know, nurture him through life. It was a wonderful place. And he wanted to know why he was sitting in his church hearing something about a chicken. The two did not go together in his mind. Chickens are cute, but they're not the most edifying animals ever, you know, they look nice until you have to clean out their apartment. That's the thing. So anyway, now, and so he wanted, what was that? And I'm a chicken? Oh, because Jesus was talking to Peter, and Peter said, Jesus was saying, you know, all of you will fall away. And Peter said, even if everybody else falls away, I will not fall away. And Jesus has replied. We find it in Matthew 26, you know. Before the cock crows 3 times, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. This very night. Now, it turned out, as Jesus said, that even when a little girl, probably, you know, the little girl in charge of the door, she was probably 10, looked up at him and said, you look like one of those people who was with Jesus. Peter just did the scared money. No. That's where we left off with Peter. With the story about the chicken, about him being chicken. And will Jesus have something to say to Peter about that? Will there be a large discussion? Will Peter be sat down and told, I expect better work out of you the next time? Or will it be the turkey? You see, where I used to work, okay, it was, you know, I read something. It said, you know, 90% of the lazy, useless people that ever lived are living and working today, right? Among us in this century. That's possibly true. You know, it was hard to get fired where I worked from. Okay, it was really hard. We had people who missed 40, 50 days in a year, absent. We had people that you just hated to see them come to the door because they never solved the problem, they just created more. We had people who didn't follow up on their commitments and everything. But if you managed to be all 3, absent a lot, incompetent, and just antisocial, you would eventually, well, the boss would actually take you out for lunch, and he would order you a turkey sandwich. True story. And that was it for you. By the end of lunch, you would know that you were unemployed. So is Peter going to be fired? You know, is Jesus going to say, I plan to have in my movement only people that I know, that I can trust. I plan to have in my movement going through the world people who have proved their loyalty in a tight spot. But we find that Peter actually discovers that Jesus invites them all to eat. Like in the King James it says, come and dine. You know, come and dine. Come be here with me. And then Peter is called before Christ, and Jesus just says, do you love me? You see, my friends, I want you to remember every day that you can be saying to yourself, yourself at this moment, this morning was not my best performance. I don't know why I got up in that kind of mood. What my children must think of me, I don't know, or you could say, oh, this has been an awful week, and I've displayed all the faults of character that a person could ever display. But when you're come before Christ, you are really going to find that His hand is out. Will you follow me now? Will you begin right now? Will you accept my help right now? Do you love me? Peter's in a compromised position. We're not even sure he's supposed to be fishing. You get your commentaries. We can't figure out whether they're supposed to be fishing or whether they just said, well, that was a lovely resurrection. We're going fishing. But we're all in a compromised position. None of us can account that well for how we have spent the hours and the minutes of our days. None of us can account that well for our attitudes, our actions, and our speech, every word. Jesus has no reliable servants. He has us. And I'm telling you the truth, that His attitude is to find you where you are, extend His hand, and we then begin to walk with Him. It's a fresh beginning, a fresh day, a fresh bestowing of His power on you, because He wants you to start now. Well, we continue with the story. If we can go with the next slide. Let's see. In that part where Peter said that he would not fall away, actually there was a nuance to it. Okay, a nuance meaning a little bit that we might not have noticed there. Okay, Jesus says, I'm in Matthew 26, this very night you will all fall away on account of me, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. And Peter replied, even if all fall away on account of you, I never will. Notice the little shift in there. He's saying, Jesus, I agree with you. I'm not so sure about Nathaniel. Okay, but I'm not going to fall away. That is why I believe that we find this mirrored in the first question that Jesus gives. Simon, son of John, do you truly love me more than these? Are you ready to say again, this time, that your love is better than the love of these other that are gathered here? Because that is what Peter said. These other ones, not so much, but even if everybody else falls away, not me. That is measuring ourselves by one another's standards. Now, do understand that this touches me deeply. Because it's been so long, it's over 20 years I've been preaching, and I've kind of forgotten what I felt like sitting out there sometimes. But I know what it is like to get amongst some preachers. Preachers come in all sorts, see? And you have a particular style. You have a certain style with me. And I have had people lovingly and just in all charity explain to me that I am not their cup of soup. Okay? And that's boring. And that doesn't make me angry. It might grieve you just a penny, but you just got to understand that's an honest statement. That does not disturb me as much as the fact that I can look at other pastors and dislike them. I can look at other pastors and dislike them. Kind of confession time, isn't it? Right? And I don't mean, and I'm sure that is not correct. That's not how we're supposed to be. Jesus is saying, he takes Peter to task. Are you ready to say now that you love me more than these? And Peter has options open. Maybe if he says, he doesn't want to say, I love you more than anybody here. Now think about the group of disciples, well, okay, I'm not so sure. John, he's pretty loving. Thomas, he's very excited because he's seen you as a resurrected Lord and placed his hand upon after his season of doubting, placed his hand upon your palms. Andrew, my brother, yeah, boy, but surely I love you more than Bartholomew. Who's ever heard of him? Or James the Less. Now, what do you think we call him, the Less? You know? Or maybe short. Peter could have even gone midway and said, well, I'm better than a lot. But he has an answer, doesn't he? To say, Lord, you know. You know about my love. And he's not going to say any more than that. You see, Jesus wants us to remember that this is his flock, all of us included. I'm one of his sheep too. And he's not really going to give his glory to another. He might send people into your life to bless you, maybe to be a source of wisdom or guidance, maybe to be a hand to lift you up. But it is still his call, his business, and his work. He's the shepherd and bishop of our souls. And he's not going to give up that throne that he sits upon and put one of us on it. And so we do need to be in the place of giving Peter's answer. That when something arises in our soul that tempts me to measure myself against another, like I can't, and we do. I do. Because I care so deeply about the pastoral office that I can't help but look at other expressions of it and, get disturbed. I don't mean, we don't want to see immorality in the pastoral office. We don't want to see abuse of funds in the pastoral office. We don't want to see bullying in the pastoral office. That's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about questions of style, effectiveness, and how God is using somebody. I should not measure that. That's Peter's answer is no, I'm done measuring myself against anybody else. Lord, you know how much I love you. Do you see how neatly Christ has tied together the two strings of what we're all about as faithful believers? Because we have your personal relationship with God. That couldn't be any more personal than that. Jesus stands in front of you and says, do you love me? Yes. Me and you. But what is the very next statement? Feed my sheep. Take care of my lambs. Your love for Christ doesn't happen, does not express itself except in love and charity and work and ministry within the body of faithful believers, in fellowship with other people, and in ministry to the world. So Jesus both wants you to have this one-on-one relationship with him, and also a life of love and charity and compassion toward the church, toward the world. It all ties together very tightly. So we have Peter in a pretty good place. We have Peter in a pretty good place where he's not going to claim his love is greater than another person. But then we're going to go to the last screen and tell you what I think Peter is really searching for here. Because he has another next screen. Let's get the poor guy off of there. Okay, we're good. There. I think Peter is searching for a way to live his life in the key of love, we could say. Because it goes to this point here. Jesus says, Simon, son of John, do you truly love me? Peter says, well, Jesus must have water in his ears or something. I'm going to love, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Okay, take care of my sheep. And the third time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Peter was distressed. There could be no mistake. Jesus asked him 3 times, do you love me? Now, again, turning in Matthew 26, see, Peter had gone even farther, saying things that were rather ill-advised for the moment. First he said, even if everybody falls away on account of you, I never will. We saw how that turned out. In verse 35, Peter declares, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. And then all the other disciples said the same thing. Well, so Peter also has said that his devotion knew no bounds. His devotion now had just colored his life from top to bottom. His devotion was what he breathed in and what he breathed out. If it led him to death, he was just fine and dandy with going to the cross or or dying alongside of Jesus. That was what Peter declared. And now he knows that he cannot be so sure of what he is capable of doing. Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Peter was hurt and distressed because Jesus asked him the third time, do you love me? Please be aware that I guess I don't know whether tomorrow I will be patient. I don't know whether I will be able to restrain anger and act in charity. I don't know whether I'll have the get-go to use my time wisely or to love my neighbor the way I should. Because these things lie in the future. It will depend on the strength that I'm given and my wit and intellect to rise to the challenges and the grace of my God. But ask yourself of Peter, how much does he want his love of Christ to be? This is different than asking yourself the question, do you love him as much as you should? Are you desiring Christ and his blessings as much as you should? Well, the answer is usually no. That's how we do. We should accuse ourselves at times. You know, we're such broken people that we don't even desire heaven and the blessing of the Spirit as much as we should because our eyes are blinded and our understanding is clouded. But this is a different question. How much does Peter want his heart to be full of love of Christ? And the answer would be, he wants it very much. Jesus challenges his love again, and Peter knows he doesn't have any answer, but, Lord, you know. Peter would be afraid that there might be another appalling piece of news, right? Well, guess what, Peter? You're going to betray me another 19 times. Or, guess what, Peter? You're going to face the challenge and you'll be clothed in shame. Guess what, Peter? By golly, you'll go out and preach and the angels will just weep for sorrow because it's such a terrible sermon. But how much does Peter want his heart to be full of love for Jesus? He wants it very much. Because he's hurt to know that it may not be everything he wants it to be. See, that's a very special place to be before God. This is not the question, do you know that Jesus paid for his sins by his death upon the cross? Or that he opens the door to resurrected life by his resurrection from the grave? This is the question that as you stand now, is it your desire to be full of love for Christ? Because when it's your desire to be full of love for Christ, that seems to be where Jesus is ready again to reach out his hand and to say, as he said to Peter, well, follow me. Follow me and find out what we can do together. Follow me and find out what ways we can express love to your family, what ways we can express love in your workplace, what ways you can be a vessel of my love in your school. Follow me because again, Jesus doesn't have dependable workers. He doesn't have people who have strength that measures up to his strength. He doesn't have people who are wise in measure of his wisdom. He doesn't have people who are connected better than Jesus is connected. Jesus is connected to everybody. And doesn't need all those things of ours, but he's looking to see, is your heart ready to say, I wish, I hope, I desire that my heart be burning for love for Christ. I can't testify to how much it burns in love for Christ. Some of it is even God's business to light that fire, and some of it is God's business to ignite me. Some of it is God's business to give my heart that strength to carry through and that vision of him which will captivate me. So much of this is in God's hands, but it is an act of my inner spirit to say, oh, if I could be full of love for Christ, that would be what I desire most. And that's where Jesus will begin to use you and begin to use me. You know that, again, we're not about measuring each other one against another. The work of love does not go on if we do that. But when we find ourselves operating in that key of love, we'll find all the things that God can do with us and for us. I'd just like us to turn to prayer at this time. As you know, we have